Welcome back, folks. Today we're breaking down the top 25 foods Americans are quietly stockpiling in 2025 and why these items are absolute must-haves for anyone paying attention. Supply chains are still fragile, prices keep climbing, and the future, well, it's as uncertain as ever. If you're here, you already sense that being prepared is no longer just a hobby, it's non-negotiable. Even governments are stockpiling reserves. China has been hoarding grains as a national security measure, and experts warn that staples like grains, produce, and meat could face shortages. So let's get ahead of the curve. We're about to dive into the essential foods you need to keep your family fed and healthy when things go south. Each of these 25 items isn't just another thing to toss in your pantry, they're chosen for maximum shelf life, nutrition, and survival punch. And don't worry, I'll sprinkle in some tips, and a pinch of sarcasm, on how to store them right, plus a few cautions on what to avoid. Grab a notepad and maybe a cup of coffee. You'll see why, because this is critical stuff you won't want to miss. Let's jump in. 1. White rice, the 30-year starch savior. First on our list is the humble white rice, the backbone of countless long-term stockpiles. Why rice? Because it's cheap, filling, and virtually lasts forever if stored properly. We're talking 30-plus years of shelf life for white rice when kept cool and dry. Yes, you read that right. Decades. In an unstable 2025, with grain supplies in flux, rice is a rock-solid bet. It's a versatile carb that keeps your belly full and delivers the energy you need when you're burning calories on survival mode. Plus, it's naturally gluten-free, making it friendly for those with wheat issues. A pro tip: stick to white rice for long-term storage. As much as we all love brown rice for health, its natural oils will make it go rancid in a year or two. So stock up on big 20 to 50 pounds bags of white rice. Costco and Sam's Club often have great bulk deals. Seal it in airtight containers or Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, and you'll have an open and eat reliable food source for decades. Whether you're cooking up DIY survival casseroles or stretching canned meals over a bed of rice, you'll be so glad you piled this up. 2. Dried beans and lentils, protein powerhouses. If rice is the king of carbs, beans are the king of plant protein. Every prepper's pantry in 2025 needs a healthy stash of dried beans, pinto, black, kidney, you name it, along with lentils, split peas, and chickpeas. These legumes are loaded with protein, fiber, iron, and other vital nutrients to keep your body strong when fresh meat is scarce. And here's the best part. When stored right, beans can last 25, 30 years or more and still keep you alive in a pinch. That's why beans and rice are legendary in prepper circles. Together, they form a complete protein, giving you all essential amino acids to fuel your muscles. We stock bags of dry pinto and black beans, plus lentils for quicker cooking. Lentils don't need overnight soaking, a bonus when fuel for cooking is limited. Another perk? Beans are dirt cheap. You can literally build a life-saving stockpile on a budget with beans and rice. Now, I won't lie. Cooking dried beans does take time and water. Plan on soaking them or using a pressure cooker if you've got one. But the payoff in nutrition is huge. If you're off-grid and worried about fuel, consider having some canned beans too for convenience. They're ready to eat, no cooking needed. Just know canned beans are heavier and pricier than dried. Either way, do not sleep on beans. In a long-term crisis, these humble legumes will be worth their weight in gold, or at least in bartering power. Allergic to beans or doing keto? Then focus more on meat and nut alternatives. But for most folks, beans are a must. Store them in buckets or Mylar with absorbers. Keep them dry and cool, and they'll be good to go for the long haul. 3. Pasta. Carb comfort, long shelf life. Next up, pasta. An American pantry classic that doubles as a survival all-star. When you're craving a sense of normalcy in a crisis, nothing hits the spot like a bowl of noodles. Pasta is more than comfort food, though. It's high energy, shelf-stable for decades, and super versatile. Those dried macaroni, spaghetti, and penne can easily last 30 years sealed in Mylar or cans, outliving just about every fresh food in your kitchen. And when you're hungry, pasta delivers quick carbs to keep you going. One thing I love about stockpiling pasta is how easy it is to cook. Even if all you have is a camp stove and some water, you can whip up a meal. Pro tip: opt for traditional dry pasta, made from refined wheat, over whole grain varieties for storage. Whole wheat or egg noodles have extra oils, proteins that shorten their shelf life. They can go rancid or stale faster. Save the healthy whole grain rotini for regular times. For your long-term stash, plain durum wheat pasta is the way to go. It lasts longer, and, let's be honest, in a survival situation, you want calories and a familiar taste more than gourmet nutrition. Keep a variety: spaghetti for quick cooking, elbow macaroni for casseroles or one-pot meals, maybe some ramen packs for an easy instant fix. Yes, those salty ramen bricks last ages too. Just remember, pasta needs water to cook, so plan on having water stored or a way to boil it. But since you're prepping, you've got that covered, right? When that day comes where you're mixing up a hearty pasta with canned sauce or tossing in some of that canned meat we'll talk about, you'll thank yourself for stocking up on noodles. It's morale-boosting, kid-friendly, and downright practical. Bottom line, pasta is a prepper's best friend among grains, cheap, filling, and lasts darn near forever. 4. Rolled oats and oatmeal. Breakfast of survivors. Don't forget oats, the unsung hero of long-term foods. A big tub of rolled oats can keep you fed and fueled when the cereal aisle is empty and the bakery is closed. Oats are incredibly nutritious, packed with fiber to keep your digestion in check under stress, plus useful protein, B vitamins, magnesium, and more. And like our other staples, rolled oats can have a 30-year shelf life when stored appropriately. That's right, your oatmeal can outlast many of us, as long as you keep it dry, cool, and in sealed containers. We love oats because they cook faster than many whole grains, important when you're trying to conserve fuel. Just add hot water, and you've got a filling breakfast. Or heck, make overnight oats if you have the means. In an emergency, a warm bowl of oatmeal with a little sugar or honey can be a major comfort and a great way to start a rough day. Pro tip: buy oats in bulk, those big 10-pound bags or buckets, and repackage into Mylar bags with absorbers to ensure they stay fresh. Instant oats, quick oats, steel cut all fine, though rolled oats, old-fashioned, are a sweet spot for storage versus cook time. If you're gluten intolerant, oats are naturally gluten-free, but double-check they're certified GF if cross-contamination is an issue for you. Another plus, oats can be used beyond just porridge. You can grind them into flour for baking, use them in energy bites with some peanut butter, or even as a stretcher in meatloaf if you're extending canned meat. When the boxed cereals are long gone, you'll be glad to have hearty oats on hand. They're shelf-stable, healthy, and give a taste of normalcy. Who doesn't remember Mom making oatmeal? So definitely put oats on your list. It's the breakfast of survivors, folks. 5. Flour and whole grains. Baking essentials for the long term. Imagine a crisis where you can still bake bread, pancakes, or biscuits. That's the power of storing flour and grains. For long-term prepping, I recommend focusing on whole grains like wheat berries, but keeping some all-purpose flour on hand too. Here's why. Whole unmilled wheat, the actual grain kernels, can last 30-plus years sealed and stored properly, effectively giving you the ability to make flour fresh as needed. Preppers have known this for ages. The LDS Church, famous for food storage, specifically recommends wheat as a survival staple, right alongside rice and beans. If you have a home grinder or even a hand crank mill, you can turn those wheat berries into flour on demand and bake real bread in an off-grid oven or Dutch oven. The nutrition in whole grains like wheat, corn, rye, or barley is top-notch. Fiber, protein, vitamins, and keeping them whole extends their shelf life dramatically. Now, not everyone has a grain mill sitting next to their coffee maker, so storing regular flour is still worth doing. A big sack of white flour, AP, or bread flour, can last a couple of years on the shelf, or longer if vacuum sealed and frozen. It won't match wheat berries for decades of storage, but it's convenient for quick use. We rotate our flour using and replacing it regularly to keep it fresh. And don't forget cornmeal and masa for cornbread or tortillas, especially if you prefer gluten-free options. Just remember, whole dry corn kernels store longer than ground cornmeal. Sense a theme here? If you or someone in your family is gluten intolerant, stock up on alternative grains like rice flour, almond flour, shorter shelf life though due to fat, or quinoa, whatever suits your diet. Just plan to rotate those more often. Also consider baking essentials: yeast, baking powder, and baking soda. Yeast won't last forever, maybe a couple years max in packets, longer in the freezer, but having some can turn flour into bread, which is a huge morale win. If yeast runs out, know how to cultivate sourdough starter or make flatbreads. In a long emergency, the smell of baking bread or biscuits can bring a sense of normalcy that keeps everyone's spirits up. So, whether you store whole wheat to grind or just sacks of flour, make sure you've got the makings for basic bread in your stockpile. With grains and flour, you'll eat well even when the groceries bread aisle is nothing but memories. 6. Salt, the ultimate mineral multi-tool. Up next is salt, not just a seasoning, but a survival essential. If you think salt is optional, think again. In a crisis, salt might save your life, or at least your food. Why? First, your body needs sodium to maintain electrolyte balance, especially when you're sweating bullets doing manual survival labor. Secondly, salt is crucial for food preservation. Think curing meats, pickling vegetables, and extending the life of your supplies without refrigeration. And here's a prepper fun fact. Pure salt, if kept dry, never goes bad. Yup, plain table salt or sea salt can be stored indefinitely, making it one of the longest-lasting items in your pantry. We keep large containers of iodized salt for thyroid health, as well as kosher salt for curing and canning. In 2025, smart preppers are buying salt in bulk because it's cheap now and could be priceless later. During any major supply chain hiccup, salt is one of those commodities that historically became worth its weight in gold. Heard the phrase salt of the earth, or that Roman soldiers were paid in salt rations? It's got serious trade value. We even include a few sacks of water softener salt crystals, not for eating, but for things like curing hides or making brines in a pinch. When stocking salt, avoid those little cardboard canisters getting damp. Transfer your salt to airtight containers or mylar bags. Moisture is the enemy that can make it clump or dissolve. Otherwise, it'll outlast us all. One more tip. Consider having both iodized and non-iodized salt. Iodine is important to prevent deficiency, keep that metabolism healthy. But non-iodized is better for certain food preservation tasks and doesn't taste bitter in big quantities. And if you're expecting heavy physical work or hot conditions, salted foods, and even electrolyte mixes will be your friend to avoid cramps and dehydration. Long story short, stockpile salt like your life depends on it, because in some ways it does. It's the ultimate force multiplier for your food supply, enhancing flavor, preserving leftovers, and keeping your body chemistry in balance when stress is high. Plus, let's be real. A spoonful of salt in a bland survival stew can make the difference between choking it down and actually enjoying your meal. Don't overlook it. Grab a lot of salt and thank me later. 7. Sugar. Sweet energy that lasts forever. In a survival situation, sugar isn't about satisfying a sweet tooth, it's about easy calories, preservation, and morale. Good old white sugar is another ingredient that basically never spoils if stored right. We're talking a shelf life of 30+ years, technically indefinite, for granulated sugar. Just like salt, keep it dry and sealed, and your sugar will outlive any crisis. Now, why stock up on sugar? For starters, it's pure energy. When you or your kids are feeling drained, a little sugar can provide a quick boost. More importantly, sugar plays a huge role in food preservation. Ever made jams or jellies? High sugar content is what keeps them from molding. So having sugar means post-collapse, you can turn that bumper crop of wild berries or those fruits you canned into preserves that last. We keep dozens of pounds of sugar stored away in airtight buckets to prevent clumping and pest intrusion. It's cheap now, so why not? Another plus, sugar = morale booster. A spoonful of sweetness can make all those bland bowls of oatmeal or cups of instant coffee much more enjoyable. When everything around is going haywire, a simple treat like sugar in your herbal tea or a syrup made to pour over pancakes can brighten the day. Also consider brown sugar and honey. We'll get to honey in a moment, as they serve similar purposes, though note that brown sugar doesn't store as long due to its molasses moisture, but it's great for flavor if rotated regularly. If you're keto or diabetic, you might not want much sugar in your diet normally, but even then I'd suggest having some on hand for barter or others' needs. And if you truly won't use it, consider alternatives like stevia or sucralose drops, which also last a long time. But for most of us, plain sugar is king for sweetening and preserving. Pro tip: you can vacuum seal sugar or just store it in the original bag inside a sealed plastic bin. Avoid oxygen absorbers directly with sugar. They can make it hard as a brick. If your sugar does harden, no worries. Break it up. It's still good. Bottom line, sweeten up your stockpile. Sugar provides an inexpensive, endless shelf-life source of calories and comfort. When you're baking up those canned apples into a dessert or trading cookies with neighbors to boost community spirit, you'll be glad you socked away a mountain of sugar. 8. Canned chicken, lean protein lifesaver. Time to talk meat, and we'll start with one of America's favorites, canned chicken. In a crisis, meat can be hard to come by, but protein is crucial for maintaining your strength and health. Canned chicken gives you convenient, ready-to-eat lean protein that can turn a pile of rice or crackers into a real meal. We stock a ton of it. Now, I'll be straight. Not all canned chicken is created equal. Some brands come out a bit, let's say mushy, and you might turn your nose up at the texture when fresh food is abundant. But if times get tough, you'll get past that real quick, trust me. Focus on quality when you can. Keystone makes an excellent canned chicken. Just chicken and a pinch of sea salt, no weird fillers. The texture and taste are way better than some generic canned chunk chicken, which can be kinda bland or rubbery. I've personally traveled a couple of states over just to snag a few cans of Keystone when my local stores were out. That's dedication, but it's worth it when you crack open a can and it actually looks and tastes like real pulled chicken. Nutritionally, canned chicken is solid. It's high in protein, low in fat. Most of the fat floats to the top of the can and you can choose to use it or not, and provides essential amino acids to keep your muscles fueled. It's also usually lower in saturated fat than canned red meats, which is better for your heart if you're hunkered down and stressed out. One caution: most canned chicken is high in sodium. It's basically chicken in brine. That salt helps preservation, and you'll need some salt intake anyway during hard work. But just be mindful if anyone in your group has hypertension. Also, check the can ingredients. Some cheaper brands sneak in things like modified food starch or broths. Not the end of the world, but you want maximum chicken for your buck. And as always, watch those expiration/best by dates. Canned chicken typically is labeled good for 5 years, but we all know they last longer if stored well. Rotate them in your normal meals. Chicken salad, quesadillas, casseroles, and restock. When the grid is down, you can mix canned chicken with some rice and canned veggies for a quick casserole, or throw it in a soup. Heck, even eat it straight from the can if you have to. It's fully cooked. Americans love chicken for a reason. It's versatile and mild, so even picky eaters, kids, I'm looking at you, will eat it without too much fuss. Make sure you have plenty of it tucked away. Quality canned chicken will be your best friend when fresh meat is a distant memory. 9. Canned beef and hearty meals, stew, chili, and more. Next on the protein parade, canned beef, the hearty, red-blooded protein source that can keep you strong when you're burning energy like crazy. Whether it's canned roast beef, beef stew, or chili with beef and beans, having shelf-stable red meat in your larder is huge. I'll admit it, I love beef. And in an emergency, I want that rich iron and B12-pack nutrition to keep my stamina up. A can of beef can deliver a morale boost that's hard to quantify. It's like a taste of normal times. One of the top options we stock is canned beef chunks. Again, Keystone's canned beef is a standout. Just beef and salt, nothing funky. You open that can and you see real pieces of beef ready to heat and eat. Dump it over rice or noodles, mix in a gravy packet, and boom! You've got a makeshift stew that feels like Grandma's Sunday dinner. Another favorite in my household, canned corned beef. Yes, that salty canned brick that's a staple in many pantries. It's not everyday health food, high sodium and fat, but man does it deliver flavor when you're in need of comfort. Corned beef hash for breakfast from a can? Sign me up in an emergency. Just watch out. Some corned beef brands use added nitrites or celery powder, which is basically a natural nitrite, to preserve that rosy color. Nothing wrong with it in moderation, but you don't want to eat it daily for weeks on end if you can help it, for health reasons. Mix up your proteins and include corned beef as an occasional high-calorie treat. Additionally, consider stocking canned meals like beef stew, canned chili, or even canned spaghetti bolognese. These combo meals give you meat and veggies carbs together, which is great when you're too exhausted to cook from scratch. Quality varies here. Brands like Dinty Moore beef stew or Hormel chili will last years and fill you up, though they can be high in salt and sometimes have mystery ingredients. Still, in a pinch, cracking open a can of chili that you can even eat cold if you had to is a godsend. Pro tip: Hormel roast beef and gravy is a surprisingly tasty canned beef product. Tender chunks and gravy that go great over instant potatoes or bread. Just like with chicken, check ingredient labels and try to pick options with fewer preservatives where possible. Warning: many canned meats, especially cheaper ones, contain sodium nitrite, preservative. In large amounts over time, nitrites aren't great for your arteries or cancer risk. So I try to balance my stockpile with natural canned meats, just salt, and limit the nitrite-heavy ones for occasional use. One more thing: canned beef lasts way beyond the best-by date. We've opened canned beef stew that was 5 years past date and it was perfectly fine. Just store cans properly, cool, dark place, and always inspect for dents, rust, or bulging. When you need dense calories and strength, beef is a winner. Make sure you have a variety of beefy options in your 2025 prepper pantry, from plain chunks to mixed meals. You'll get protein, iron, zinc, all the good stuff, and a full belly to face whatever the world throws at you. 10. Canned fish, tuna, salmon, and sardines, omega-3 gold mines. Let's cast a line into the canned fish category, because it's a must-have for any serious stockpile. We're mainly talking canned tuna and canned salmon, with a side of sardines, if you're brave enough for the tiny fish. Fish brings something special to your diet: omega-3 fatty acids, which are fantastic for your heart, brain, and overall health, and those can be hard to come by in a survival scenario. First up, canned tuna. It's a classic for good reason: high in protein, very accessible, and relatively cheap. Toss a few dozen cans of tuna in your pantry, and you've got instant protein to add to crackers, salads, if you have a garden going, or pasta. Now, some folks worry about mercury in tuna. It's a valid concern in normal life if you eat tons of it. But in an emergency diet, the benefits probably outweigh the risks. Still, here's a tip. Go for chunk-light tuna, usually from smaller skipjack tuna, instead of solid white albacore when possible. Chunk-light tends to have much lower mercury levels because it's from younger, smaller fish. We keep both cans and those vacuum-sealed pouches of tuna. Note: pouches save weight and are great for bug-out bags, but they don't store as long, about 6 months to a year shelf life, versus cans which generally last 2, 5 years, or more. And cans are sturdier against rodents too. So for home storage, cans are king. Pouches are a nice supplement for portable kits. Next, canned salmon. This is like tuna's richer cousin, often packed with even more omega-3s and vitamin D. Salmon, especially wild Alaskan if you can get it, is a nutritional powerhouse. We stock canned pink salmon and sometimes the more expensive red sockeye salmon when it's on sale. It's fantastic for making salmon patties or mixing into rice. And unlike tuna, salmon typically comes from fish lower on the food chain. Pink salmon are smaller, so mercury is less of an issue. Some cans even include soft, edible bones, which give you a calcium boost, important if your diet lacks dairy. Don't forget sardines and other canned fish like mackerel or anchovies. Now, I get it. Not everyone grew up eating sardines on crackers with Grandpa. But these little guys are an MVP in a crisis. They are usually low in mercury, small fish, high in omega-3, plus they come with beneficial fish oils and even vitamin D and B12. Sardines are typically packed in oil or water. The oil-packed ones have more calories, good for survival, and the oil itself can be used for cooking or added to food for fat intake. I've come around to actually enjoying sardines, and if you can get past the fishy look, they're quite tasty and satisfying. A single small can of sardines can give you a quick hit of protein and fat to keep you going. Also, canned mackerel is similar, often cheaper and comes in larger cans. It's a bit stronger in flavor, but great mixed into rice or pasta with some tomato sauce, a little improvised tuna casserole vibe. When buying canned fish, variety is key. Tuna might get old every single day, so have some salmon or sardines to mix it up. Watch out for the salt content in things like canned anchovies. Those are really for flavoring more than a meal. And as always, check those cans for any damage if they've been sitting for years. Generally, fish has a high protein content and will keep in the can for at least the date and quite a bit beyond if unharmed. Pro tip: for tuna, consider grabbing some that are no drain or in pouches for convenience, but balance that with regular cans for longevity. And remember, mercury concerns or not, in a true emergency, getting enough protein and healthy fat is more critical than a bit of heavy metal content. If you're really concerned, brands like Safe Catch test their tuna for extra low mercury. Could be worth including for peace of mind, especially for kids or pregnant family members in a crisis. Bottom line, canned fish is a no-brainer. It's nutritious, shelf-stable, and doesn't even require cooking. You'll be thankful for that tuna sandwich or salmon patty when fresh meat is a distant memory. 11. Spam and canned pork products. Love it or hate it, it lasts. 12. Peanut butter, nutritious fat and protein in a jar. If I could only pick a handful of items for my survival pantry, peanut butter would definitely make the cut. This creamy or crunchy delight is chock full of healthy fats, protein, and calories. Basically a superfood in a survival scenario. Americans love their PB&J, and guess what? That love could save your life in a crisis. Peanut butter is great because it doesn't require refrigeration even after opening, unless it's the natural kind with no preservatives. And a little goes a long way. Just 2 tablespoons can have around 190 calories, 8 grams of protein, and a bunch of heart-healthy monounsaturated fats. That means it's both energy-dense and nutrient-dense, exactly what you want when food is scarce. 1 jar of peanut butter can keep you going for days, even if you had nothing else. We include both standard peanut butter, the kind that's shelf-stable for a year or 2 easily, and some powdered peanut butter in our stocks. Powdered PB is basically dehydrated peanuts, not as tasty on its own, but it lasts longer and can be reconstituted or used in baking. Still, nothing beats a spoonful of real peanut butter to lift morale. It's comfort food that's actually good for you, in moderation. Another big plus, peanut butter is ready to eat. You don't need to cook it, heat it, or add water. In an emergency, you can literally pop open a jar and just eat a scoop for quick fuel. It's also kid-friendly. Even picky kids will usually eat PB on something. Now, let's talk about dietary needs. If someone in your group has a nut allergy, obviously peanut butter is out. In that case, consider stocking sunflower seed butter or soy nut butter as alternatives. Similar nutrition, without the peanuts. Those might not last as long on the shelf, check the labels, but they're decent substitutes. If you're concerned about diet or variety, note that peanut butter is naturally gluten-free and fine for a lot of diets, though obviously not low-fat or low-calorie, which is exactly why we want it for survival. For keto folks, the fats in peanut butter are great. Just watch the sugars in some brands. For vegetarians, it's a critical protein source. We usually grab the large jars or even the multi-packs from warehouse stores. Just remember to rotate them because the shelf life, while long, isn't infinite. Most peanut butters are good for 1.5 to 2 years unopened. We cycle through ours by simply eating them. Peanut butter brownies, anyone? And replacing as needed. One more tip. Peanut butter can be used in cooking to add richness. Throw a spoonful into a pot of oatmeal, or make a spicy peanut sauce with some soy sauce, if you stored that in your condiments, to liven up rice and veggies. It's versatile. In summary, peanut butter is the prepper's secret weapon. It's like having a jar of calories and nutrients that actually tastes good. Do not sleep on it. And hey, if you're allergic or hate peanuts, at least stock some kind of nut or seed butter. You'll need that fat and protein when the grocery stores are empty. For everyone else, grab an extra jar, or 5, of PB next shopping trip. Your future self will spread it on a stale cracker in 2030 and think, man, this is heavenly. 13. Powdered milk. Calcium and protein, no fridge needed. When fresh milk becomes a luxury, powdered milk will feel like a miracle. Storing non-fat dry milk in your prepper pantry ensures you have a source of calcium, protein, and vitamin D for the long haul, all without needing a cow in the backyard. Now, I get it. Powdered milk has a bit of a bad rap because it's not exactly the same as fresh milk taste-wise. But in a survival situation, you'll be thanking your lucky stars you have it, especially if you have kids or you're a serious coffee drinker. Gotta have some milk for that coffee, right? The great thing is, properly packaged powdered milk can last 20+ years. In fact, the non-fat variety, no fat means less chance of rancidity, is what lasts longest, around 20 years per LDS storage guidelines. We make sure to buy the fortified kind that has vitamins A and D added to mimic whole milk's nutrition. Each scoop of this stuff gives you protein for muscle, calcium for bones, and it can even be used in cooking/baking. One trick: rotate your powdered milk if possible. Though it can last decades sealed, once you open a big can of it, you'll want to use it within a reasonable time, months, or it can start to taste off. So we have some in big number 10 cans for long-term unopened storage, and a box of smaller packets that we rotate through for occasional use, making a pitcher for recipes or just to get the family used to the taste. And speaking of taste, here's a tip to make reconstituted milk more palatable. Mix it up a few hours ahead and chill it if you can, when power's on or if you have a cool stream or snow. A little bit of sugar or vanilla can help too if you're drinking it straight. But realistically, you'll likely use powdered milk in recipes, on cereal, in oatmeal, in mashed potatoes, or in baking, where it's barely distinguishable from fresh. Also, let's not forget other dairy alternatives. Evaporated milk, canned, is good to store too for a richer milk substitute, but it has a shorter shelf life, a couple years, and needs rotation. Powdered whey milk or protein powders can supplement nutrition as well. And if you are lactose intolerant or vegan, look into powdered soy milk or almond milk powder. Those exist, though the nutritional profile might differ. Soy powder is actually pretty high in protein too. We have a bit of everything, but non-fat dry milk is the bulk because it's reliable and time-tested. During an emergency, having milk means you can whip up things like instant pudding, great morale booster if you stored some mixes, creamy soups, or just give the kids a comforting glass of milk with their meal, maintaining a sense of normalcy. If anyone in your group is pregnant or nursing, or you have toddlers, milk is even more important for their nutrition. And yes, infant formula. That's a separate must-have if you've got a baby. Don't try to substitute regular powdered milk for a baby's formula. They need the real deal, or a specific baby formula. Make sure you have a stock of formula if needed. For the rest of us, powdered milk is a quiet hero on the shelf. It's not flashy, but it's fundamental. So toss a few cans or pouches in your cart and tuck them away. You'll be grateful for that creamer in your coffee and calcium in your diet when fresh dairy is just a memory. 14. Honey, liquid gold that lasts forever. If you want something sweet that literally never spoils, look no further than honey. This isn't just hippie talk. Archaeologists found edible honey in ancient Egyptian tombs thousands of years old. That's right, honey can last virtually forever when properly sealed. For preppers, honey is gold. It's a natural sweetener, a quick energy source, and even doubles as a medicinal item. Hello, wound dressing and cough suppressant. We have multiple big jars of honey in our stockpile, and here's why you should too. First off, calories and carbs. In a survival situation, your body will crave quick energy for all the labor and stress. Honey provides simple sugars, fructose and glucose, that can give you a rapid boost. Stir it into some of that herbal tea or drizzle on your hardtack biscuit, and you've got instant fuel. Unlike plain sugar, honey also contains trace vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. Not enough to live on, sure, but every little bit helps when your diet might otherwise get monotonous and deficient. Second, indefinite shelf life. As I said, honey doesn't spoil. It might crystallize over time. That's normal and doesn't mean it's bad. If your honey turns into sugar crystals, just warm it up and it'll return to liquid form. We keep our honey in tightly sealed containers. You don't want moisture or contaminants in there, but pure honey is hostile to bacteria due to its low water content and acidity. The bees knew what they were doing. This makes honey a fantastic barter item too, something that lasts forever and pretty much everyone likes. That's trade gold. Third, medicinal uses. Honey is famous for its antimicrobial properties. You can apply it to minor cuts or burns to protect against infection and promote healing. It's a bit messy, but in a pinch when medical supplies are low, it's a proven folk remedy that modern science actually backs, at least for certain types of raw honey. And if you catch a nasty cough or sore throat and there's no pharmacy, a spoonful of honey can soothe the throat as well as any over-the-counter syrup, if not better. Now, a couple of considerations. If you have infants under 1 year old, don't feed them honey. Risk of botulism spores for babies. That's the one caveat of honey safety. For older kids and adults, it's fine. Also, if you or someone is diabetic, remember honey will spike blood sugar similarly to regular sugar. Use sparingly and monitor as needed. But beyond that, honey is basically a perfect survival food. It's also delicious, let's not forget that. Eating bland rice and hard bread day after day can hammer morale. A squeeze of honey on a biscuit or a sweetened cup of instant coffee can lift the spirit. We stock local honey when possible, support the local beekeepers. But any pure honey will do. Clover, wildflower, acacia, you name it. If you can, maybe even consider learning a bit about beekeeping for a truly renewable supply, but that's an advanced project. At minimum, get some jars now. One pro tip, those giant cheap jugs of honey at wholesale clubs are great value. Just maybe transfer into smaller jars for easier handling and to avoid opening the main jug too often. And store at moderate temps. If it gets super cold, it crystallizes faster. Super hot for long periods can darken it. Still okay to eat. All said, honey is liquid gold in your prepper pantry. It's nature's oldest preservative and sweetener rolled into one. When sugar runs out or you need a morale boost, you'll be glad to crack open that jar of golden goodness that's been waiting on the shelf forever. Sweet preparedness indeed. 15. Canned vegetables. Vitamins in a can. All right, we've covered a lot of proteins and carbs. Now let's get to canned vegetables, the unsung heroes that provide those essential vitamins and fiber when fresh produce is a distant memory. If you think surviving on Spam and rice alone is enough, think again. Your body needs the micronutrients from veggies to stay healthy, keep your immune system up, and prevent things like scurvy. No one wants 18th century sailor diseases while surviving 2025 chaos, trust me. Canned veggies are easy to stock, cheap, and if stored properly, can be good for 5+ years beyond their best by date in many cases. We're talking cans of green beans, corn, peas, carrots, potatoes, spinach, whatever you like to eat normally because you'll be more likely to use it. These bring color and variety to an otherwise beige emergency diet. Importantly, they retain a lot of their nutritional value. People ask, do canned vegetables even have vitamins? Yes, they do. The canning process does cause some loss, but canned fruits and veggies still pack a good nutritional punch, especially compared to nothing. For example, canned tomatoes are a must in my book. They're high in vitamin C and A, and you can use them as a base for soups, stews, pasta sauce, chili, you name it. We stock diced tomatoes, tomato sauce, paste, etc. And tomatoes are high acid, which actually means they help preserve themselves. Most canned fruits and acidic veggies have slightly shorter official shelf lives of 1-2 years, but can often be fine longer. Then there's canned green beans, peas, and corn, which my kids will eat happily even cold. They provide fiber, some protein, peas especially, and various vitamins. Mixed vegetables are a great item too, like those Libby's or Del Monte mixed medley with peas, carrots, corn, beans in one can. That gives you a spread of nutrients and makes for an easy side dish or soup starter. In fact, A case of Libby's mixed veggies is something I saw recommended for a well-balanced emergency diet, and I agree. It's like a multivitamin in food form. Don't forget leafy greens. Canned spinach or collard greens can supply much-needed iron, calcium, and magnesium. Popeye wasn't kidding. Spinach will keep you strong and help avoid anemia. The taste of canned spinach. Okay, it's not a fresh salad, but mixed into eggs or soup, it's fine. Canned potatoes are another good item. They're pre-cooked, so you can eat them cold or fry them up quickly. Starch plus vitamin C. We keep several cans of sliced potatoes for quick hash or stew. One thing to watch: sodium content. Many canned veggies come loaded with salt. You can find no salt added versions if that's a concern. We have some of those too. But honestly, in a sweaty survival scenario, the extra salt might be beneficial. Just be mindful if anyone has hypertension. You can always rinse canned veggies in water to remove some salt before use. Yes, you'll lose a tiny bit of the water-soluble vitamins, but it's an option. Another tip: canned pickled veggies, like sauerkraut, pickled beets, etc. Count too. They last a long time and provide not just nutrients but also probiotics, in some cases, which can help digestion. Plus a tangy flavor change. We have jars of sauerkraut and pickled jalapenos in our stash because why not? In summary, don't skimp on the veggies. They are key to a balanced diet. Preppers often focus on beans, rice, and meat, and forget they'll miss vegetables dearly until they get constipated or sick from lack of vitamins. Even the CDC says fruits and veggies are critical in emergencies, though in practice we rely on canned. We rotate ours by incorporating into normal dinners, easy sides on busy nights, and replenishing. And if nothing happens, well, you just have a convenient stash of veggies that save you trips to the store. If something does happen, you'll be eating a more balanced, healthy diet than the guy who only stored ramen and tuna. That could make a huge difference in how well you cope physically and mentally in a prolonged crisis. So load up on those cans of greens and beans. Your body will thank you. 16. Canned fruits. Nature's dessert and vitamin C hit. Hand in hand with veggies, we've got to talk canned fruits. In an emergency, having something sweet and vitamin-rich like peaches or pears can seriously boost your morale and your health. Fresh fruit might be unavailable or gone within days of a crisis, but canned fruit can fill that gap for years. These are basically vitamins in syrup, or juice, that can keep scurvy at bay and give you a little psychological lift when all you've eaten are bland rations. Popular ones to store include canned peaches, pears, pineapple, fruit cocktail, mandarin oranges, and applesauce. We have shelves of these. They're not just tasty. They provide key nutrients like vitamin C, vitamin A, potassium, and fiber. For instance, a cup of canned peaches still has a decent amount of vitamin C and A from those orange-hued fruits, helping your immune system. Pineapple has vitamin C and bromelain, an enzyme that can help digestion a bit. Even humble applesauce gives some vitamin C and soluble fiber, good for your gut. The sweet syrup or natural juices they're packed in also provide some quick carbs for energy. One can of fruit can feel like a feast when you're craving something juicy and sweet after weeks of canned meat and grains. Now, shelf life. Canned fruits are generally high-acid foods, which means the official shelf life is often 1.5 to 2 years, since acids can interact with cans over time. But in reality, if the can is intact, they can last quite a bit longer, though vitamin content, like vitamin C, will degrade slowly. I'd recommend rotating your fruit more frequently than, say, canned meat. Use them in everyday life. Make a pineapple upside-down cake or dump some mandarin oranges into a salad, and then restock. But I've eaten 3-year-old canned peaches and they were perfectly fine, just a bit softer. A key nutrient from fruit is vitamin C, which prevents scurvy and keeps your immune system strong. You can also get C from canned tomatoes or certain veggies, but fruit is the tastiest source. If you go completely without fruit or fresh foods for too long, you risk deficiency, so definitely include fruits in your stash. Another plus, canned fruits can double as desserts. In a situation where morale is low, opening a can of fruit cocktail, with those fun cherry halves in there, can brighten the mood, especially for kids. We sometimes stash a few cans of pie filling, like cherry or apple pie filling too. Not only can those be used to actually bake a treat if you have an off-grid oven, but they can be eaten straight or on pancakes for a high-sugar morale booster. Watch out for sugar content, though. Many canned fruits are in heavy syrup. It gives extra calories, not necessarily a bad thing in survival, but you can opt for fruits in natural juice or light syrup if you prefer. They'll have less added sugar but a shorter shelf life once opened, since sugar is a preservative. And remember, once you pop open a can of fruit and you have leftovers, without a fridge, you'll need to consume it fairly quickly or it will ferment spoil. But honestly, an open can of peaches rarely goes unfinished. It's too yummy. If you've got a sweet tooth, consider also storing some dried fruits, which we'll discuss next. They're lightweight and last long too. But dried versus canned is a trade-off. Canned gives you water content, hydration, and that ready-to-eat factor, while dried packs more in less space. We like having both. Ultimately, canned fruit is about keeping nutrition and morale in balance. It's one of those things that might seem like a luxury until you're 2 months into eating bland rations and feel your body craving that fructose and vitamin hit. Don't overlook it. A can of peaches might just be the thing that keeps your family happy and healthy when times are tough. So stock up on nature's dessert. It'll pay dividends in an uncertain future. 17. Dried fruits and vegetables, lightweight nutrient bombs. While canned fruits and veggies are great, I'd be remiss not to mention dried fruits and vegetables. These are the lightweight champions of nutrition, shrunken-down produce that still carries vitamins, fiber, and flavor, but without the water weight and with an extended shelf life. In 2025, a lot of smart preppers are quietly filling Mylar bags and jars with dehydrated goodness. So, what falls in this category? Think raisins, dried apricots, apple slices, banana chips, dried berries for fruits. For veggies, dehydrated carrots, bell peppers, onions, broccoli, potatoes, even kale chips if you fancy. You can dehydrate your own with a home dehydrator or buy them commercially. The big advantage? Dried produce is super space efficient and lasts many years when properly stored, often 5-10 years, and freeze-dried even longer. In fact, if dried thoroughly and stored with oxygen absorbers, some fruits like apples can last 30 years. These give you a way to have something akin to fruits veggies in your diet even when cans run out. Dried fruits are awesome snacks. They offer a concentrated source of sugars and nutrients. A handful of raisins or dried apricots can give you iron and potassium and satisfy a sweet craving without added sugar. It's basically fruit's own sugar. They're also great to mix into things like oatmeal or trail mix, with some nuts and maybe chocolate chips, to keep energy up during strenuous activities. True story. On long hikes, I always pack gorp, trail mix, with plenty of dried fruit for quick carbs. Dried veggies are usually more about adding to meals. Toss a mix of dried peas, carrots, and corn into a soup or stew, and they'll rehydrate and taste nearly like fresh. Dried onion flakes, garlic, and herbs. Those are huge for flavor. I consider spices and herbs part of this dried category too. If you have dried greens like dehydrated spinach or kale, you can crush them into powders to sprinkle into foods for a nutrition boost. Stealth health, if you will. Let's highlight one superstar, dried beans. Well, we already covered beans in number 2, but note that technically those are dried vegetables too and last ages. Another, potato flakes, dehydrated mashed potatoes. They last 30 years per LDS data and provide a quick carb base. Keep some in your stash for speedy mashed potatoes by just adding water. Now, storage tips. Moisture is the enemy. Properly dried foods should crack or snap when bent, for veggies, fruits, leathery or brittle depending on type. We store ours in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers and desiccant packets to keep them dry. Mylar bags in buckets or vacuum-sealed jars work great. If you DIY dry at home, make sure you really get the food dry enough, usually 10% or less moisture, or else they won't store long-term safely. The beauty of dried produce is also weight. If you ever have to bug out or move locations carrying food, a bunch of dried fruit and veg in your pack provides lots of nutrition for very little heft. Freeze-dried foods are even lighter and often retain more nutrients, but they're pricier. More on that in the next item. In terms of using dried stuff, You can nibble many dried fruits straight like apple rings or banana chips. Those might be fried, actually. Careful of that. For dried veggies, usually you rehydrate by soaking or cooking in liquid. It's pretty easy when you're making soups, stews, rice, etc. If you're making, say, a casserole or skillet meal, you can throw in some dried bell pepper or onion to rehydrate as it cooks. Also, consider sprouting some of your dry goods, like beans or seeds, as a way to get fresh greens. But that's a tangent. Sprouting is great for vitamins, though. Dried foods are also a stealth way to add variety. Eating the same canned peas every day gets dull. But maybe one day you toss in dried broccoli, another day dried zucchini chips, etc., keeping the menu a bit more interesting. True Prepper actually noted that dehydrating extends the life of your garden produce, making up a big part of the best foods to dehydrate. So if you garden, that's a way to preserve the excess. All in all, dried fruits and veggies are a critical component of a robust food stockpile. They ensure you have those plant-based nutrients and flavors in compact form. They weigh practically nothing until you add water. We always say, store what you eat and eat what you store. So get some dried fruit into your snack rotation now and stash extra away. Your future self might be chewing on some sweet dried mango in the middle of a blackout, thinking it's the best thing ever. Don't miss out on that goodness. 18. Jerky and dried meats. Portable protein picks. When it comes to on-the-go protein that needs no refrigeration, it's hard to beat jerky. Whether it's beef jerky, turkey jerky, or even exotic game jerky, having some form of dried meat in your stockpile is a smart move. This is the kind of stuff you can stick in your pocket and chew on while you're out chopping wood or on watch at camp. It's pure protein and salt, exactly what you need for muscle fuel and electrolyte balance on the move. Now, a word on shelf life. Commercial jerky is typically good for about 1 to 2 years in its sealed package. Some high-quality brands advertise up to 24 months. They achieve that by being low in fat, using cures like sodium nitrite, and vacuum sealing with oxygen absorbers. Homemade jerky, on the other hand, usually only lasts a few months, maybe up to 6 months in ideal conditions, because it's hard to get all the moisture out at home, and we often skip heavy preservatives. So for long-term storage, store-bought jerky or professionally made dehydrated meat is the way to go. We keep a mix. We vacuum seal some homemade venison jerky each year from hunting season, and honestly, that gets eaten as snacks well before it ever nears expiration. And we buy large bags of beef jerky when on sale to put back for emergencies. Jerky brings a morale factor, too. It's something satisfying to chew, with a savory umami hit that can break the monotony of rice and beans. It's basically the primitive energy bar, and because it's often high in salt, it can help with your salt intake if you're working hard. Just be sure to also drink water. Nutritionally, a good jerky is all lean protein, and sometimes surprisingly high in zinc and iron too, red meat jerkies especially. That can help prevent fatigue and keep your immune system strong. Also consider other dried meats like biltong, a South African-style dried beef, usually air-dried, softer, very good, or meat sticks like Slim Jims or pepperoni sticks. Those are more fatty, but they last a while. Vacuum-sealed meat sticks can last a year or more. They do have nitrites and such preserving them. We throw some meat sticks in our storage for quick, no-prep calories. Just note, anything with higher fat, like salami, pepperoni, can go rancid faster than lean jerky. Speaking of fat, traditional pemmican, coming up in the next item, is another form of preserved meat. But jerky is easier to eat on its own. If you're making your own jerky, slice meat thin, marinate with curing salt, and dehydrate thoroughly. But again, without commercial vacuum packing, eat it sooner rather than later. In a pinch, you can also make fish jerky or dried shrimp. Some cultures do that regularly. Dried fish lasts a decent while and is high in protein/omegas, though the smell, potent. We have some packaged dried shrimp as flavoring for soups. They last a long time dried. One caution: because dried meat is so devoid of water, you should have water to drink when eating a lot of it. Your body needs fluid to process all that protein. Also, consuming very lean dry meat exclusively without fat, the old rabbit starvation, can be an issue, but in our modern stockpiles we have plenty of fats elsewhere. Peanut butter, Spam, etc. So jerky is a supplement to those. I see jerky as strategic food, great for bug-out bags and short-term intense activity. For a year-long lockdown, you'd want other meats too, canned, frozen, etc. Because jerky is labor-intensive to make and not as calorie-dense due to low fat. But it fills an important niche in the pantry. Plus, if the power goes out, you can preserve meat by jerking it or making biltong if you have the know-how, which is a good skill. In summary, include a healthy stash of jerky or dried meats in your preps. They offer fast, no-cook protein, long shelf life, especially commercial ones with oxygen absorbers, which can be plenty of months or a couple years, and taste darn good when you need a boost. When you're out on patrol or doing heavy labor, gnawing on a strip of beef jerky can keep you going. And sometimes, that little morale boost of real meat chew makes all the difference. 19. Freeze-dried meals and ingredients. 25-year super survivors. If you're aiming for long-term food security with minimal rotation hassle, then freeze-dried foods are your best friend. These are the guys that often come in those big number 10 cans or pouches with claims like 25-year shelf life, and they mean it. Freeze-drying is like the Lamborghini of food preservation. It removes 98 to 99% of moisture while locking in flavor and nutrients, resulting in foods that, when sealed properly, can last decades on the shelf. We're talking freeze-dried meals, like those from Mountain House, ReadyWise, etc., as well as individual ingredients like freeze-dried fruits, veggies, and meats. Investing in some of these can really round out your stockpile for the long haul. Here's why they're awesome. Just add water, and you've often got a meal ready in minutes. For example, we have number 10 cans of freeze-dried beef crumbles, chicken chunks, even cheese. Pop one open, rehydrate what you need for a recipe, and you've got basically fresh-tasting meat or cheese to cook with. Freeze-dried sweet corn, green beans, strawberries, etc. are so light and crisp you can snack on them dry or rehydrate for a side dish. And full freeze-dried entrees, like beef stew, pasta primavera, scrambled eggs with bacon are available. These are popular with backpackers and are also perfect for emergency kits. They tend to be on the expensive side per meal, but having a couple of weeks' worth of ready-made freeze-dried meals can be a lifesaver when you can't cook from scratch or need to evacuate in a hurry. For instance, a number 10 can of freeze-dried lasagna can feed the family with just boiling water added. In terms of nutrition, freeze-drying retains a lot because it's done at ultra-low temps in a vacuum. So the veggies and fruits maintain much of their vitamins compared to traditional dehydrating. That's a big plus for keeping your diet balanced. And did I mention shelf life? Many are rated 25 years, some even 30. That means you can tuck them away and not worry much. Maybe just check every decade or so. We keep a stock of both individual items and meal kits. There are emergency food supply buckets that contain a variety of freeze-dried or dehydrated meals, like those 1-month supply buckets from Augusten Farms or My Patriot Supply. Those are great for grab-and-go or sheltering in place with simplified cooking. However, do note, those bucket meals often are heavy on rice, pasta, and light on real proteins, so augment them with extra freeze-dried meats or beans. One downside: water. You need hot, or at least warm water to reconstitute freeze-dried food. So make sure you have a way to boil water off-grid, propane stove, wood fire, etc., and of course have stored water or a purification system to use available water. If you're in a desert environment with limited water, canned wet foods might actually be more practical for you than a bunch of dry stuff that needs rehydration. But most cases, water procurement is part of prepping anyway. Another potential downside: some people find the texture of certain freeze-dried foods a bit different once rehydrated, and the meals can be high in sodium for preservation and flavor. But in a crisis, those are minor quibbles. I'll also lump MREs, meals ready to eat, loosely into this category of ready meals. Though they are not freeze-dried, they're wet-packed. MREs last 5-7 years at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, shorter if hotter, longer if cooler. We have a few cases for variety, and if we need to be mobile, since each MRE has its own water and even a heater. They're heavy though, so not for long-term stationary storage as efficiently as freeze-dried. Given unlimited budget, I'd say get a wide array of freeze-dried goodies, fruits for snacks, veggies, and meats to add to stews. Complete meals for quick, no-brainer dinners. They will be the backbone of a 1+ year food supply if you ever need it. And if not, they'll still be good when you pass them on to your grandkids. We also keep some in our everyday pantry for convenience. For example, freeze-dried onion and bell pepper that I can toss into weeknight recipes. Saves chopping and they rehydrate right in the pot. So they're useful even now. All in all, freeze-dried foods are the ultimate insurance policy. Non-perishable to the extreme, lightweight, and nutritionally robust. The world could go haywire, but you'll still be enjoying beef stroganoff and blueberry yogurt bites like it's a camping trip. That's peace of mind worth investing in. 20. Pemmican, centuries-old survival superfood. Now let's step back in time and talk about a legendary survival food that's making a comeback among serious preppers, pemmican. If you haven't heard of pemmican, it's basically the OG energy bar, invented by Native Americans and adopted by explorers for its astounding shelf life and nutrition. Pemmican is a mixture of dried meat, often buffalo or beef, rendered fat, tallow, and sometimes dried berries, compressed into dense cakes or bars. It doesn't look like much, but pemmican is incredibly calorie-rich and can last decades when prepared and stored properly. I'm not exaggerating. Well-made pemmican stored in a cool, dry place has been known to be edible for 50+ years. That's why it's often hailed as one of the best long-lasting survival foods on the planet. So, what's the big deal? The magic of pemmican is that it's a complete meal in one. High fat from the tallow for energy, high protein from the dried meat for muscle, and some carbs, vitamins if berries are included. Indigenous people could survive harsh winters on pemmican alone. Arctic explorers like Stephenson famously subsisted on pemmican in the early 1900s. One small chunk, say 2x2 inches, can be like 400, 500 calories, which in survival terms is huge. The fat content, think roughly a 1:1 ratio of dry meat to fat by weight, is what preserves it and gives you lasting energy. It's also shelf-stable without refrigeration because all moisture is removed and the fat seals out air. Now, pemmican isn't something you typically buy at Walmart. You usually have to make it yourself or buy from specialty survival food vendors. Making it is a bit of an art. You need lean meat, fat can spoil, so you only add pure rendered fat later. Slice it thin and dry it completely, sun, smoker, dehydrator, whatever method, until it's crispy dry. Pulverize the dried meat into almost a powder. Do the same with some dried berries if using blueberries or cranberries are common, but optional. Then warm up rendered beef tallow and mix the meat powder and berry powder into it. As it cools, you form it into bars or balls. The tallow hardens and encases the meat. Voila pemmican. Properly made, it shouldn't spoil. We've made small batches at home. I'll warn you, straight pemmican is an acquired taste texture. It's like a dry, waxy meat bar, but when you're hungry, it goes down fine. You can nibble it as is, or fry it up with a little water to make a rudimentary stew. The Métis called that rubabou. Honestly, I also like to mix pemmican into oatmeal sometimes. Weird, but works. Because pemmican is so calorie-dense and shelf-stable, we keep a stash vacuum-sealed in Mylar bags. I consider it emergency of emergency rations, like, I might not dig into pemmican until I've exhausted fresher foods, or if we need lightweight travel food. But knowing it's there is comforting. It's sort of the ultimate fallback. If all canned goods ran out and I couldn't get fresh game, I could eat a few pemmican balls a day and survive quite a long time. It's that potent. From a nutritional perspective, pemmican made from grass-fed beef is packed with not just macros but also minerals and fat-soluble vitamins. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, basically fits any diet except vegetarian-vegan. Speaking of which, if you are vegetarian, there isn't a true equivalent to pemmican, maybe a nut seed bar with ghee, hard to replicate. So meat eaters have an edge here. You can purchase pemmican from some survival companies, but it tends to be pricey for what you get. Cheaper to make at home if you can buy beef in bulk. But do a small test batch first to ensure you like it and did it right. No moisture. Also store it in a cool place. While it can handle room temp, heat is never good for fats long term. Pemmican might seem extra if you're new to prepping, but advanced folks know it's the gold standard of survival food. Lightweight, long-lasting, and nutritionally robust. There's a reason it fed entire civilizations and expeditions. If the grid goes down and supermarkets are barren, a bucket of pemmican in the closet means you've got months of food in a small package. That's real security. So consider giving pemmican a try. It's a piece of prepper heritage that could one day be a lifesaver. 21. Hardtack and survival crackers. Bread that never dies. When you need something to crunch on that will basically never expire, it's time to bring out hardtack and long-life crackers. These are the original long-term breads, simple, rock-hard biscuits that can last for decades if kept dry. Civil War soldiers lived on hardtack. Some of it was supposedly from the previous war. Trust me, if stored well, this stuff could outlast a zombie apocalypse and still be edible, if not exactly gourmet. Hardtack is just flour, water, and a pinch of salt, baked to the point of hardness and moisture removal. It's more of a building material than a food in its original state. You typically would soak it in soup, coffee, or water to soften it before eating, unless you enjoy dental work. But as a survival ration, it's fantastic because it's simple carbs that won't spoil. Think of it as a substitute for bread when you can't have fresh bread. We've baked some hardtack at home for the fun/history of it and stored it away. You can also buy commercial survival crackers or pilot bread that serve a similar purpose. Pilot bread, for example, is like a thick cracker used in Alaska and by sailors. A popular brand is Sailor Boy Pilot Bread. Those can last years if kept from moisture and pests. They're easier to eat than hardtack, softer, but still quite durable. I always keep a couple tins of Army surplus survival crackers from Cold War era around. They are surprisingly still good, a bit stale perhaps, but totally edible with some peanut butter or dipped in soup. These crackers were designed to last decades, sealed in metal tins, and they delivered. A more modern approach? Some emergency food suppliers make long shelf-life bread or biscuit products. For example, Mainstay or Daytrex emergency ration bars. Those are more of a shortbread cookie texture, but they're specifically packaged to last 5+ years in any climate. We include those in our car kits. However, for home storage beyond 5 years, hardtack pilot bread is a proven option. Why include hardtack crackers? Because if you have soup or canned stew, having a bread to go with it makes it a lot more filling. Also, if you have leftover peanut butter or jam, spreading it on a cracker feels like a treat. These also can serve as breakfast, spread some honey on a cracker, or a quick snack while on the move. Hard crackers also pair well with canned cheese or powdered cheese spreads, if you have those stocked. I know some preppers who store Kraft Easy cheese in cans. Not long-term, like 2 years max, but a morale thing. As far as dietary needs, if you're gluten-free, standard hardtack is out. It's basically all gluten. You might consider long-lasting rice cakes. Not as long-lived, but vacuum-sealed, they last a while. Or make a gluten-free hardtack variant with, say, rice flour. Though gluten is kind of what makes hardtack hard. If you're keto, you'd skip hardtack entirely. Just stick with nuts and jerky. But for the average person, a bit of cracker is welcome in a carb-limited survival diet. One of the key reasons to have this is psychological. We're used to having some kind of bread or starch at meals. In a prolonged emergency, that sense of normalcy and fullness that bread provides is important. True Prepper called these survival bread, and notes it covers everything from pilot crackers to hard biscuits that have a long shelf life. So definitely include some form of this in your stash. The easiest route if you don't want to bake hardtack is to buy pilot bread crackers. They come in large sleeves or tins. Or even plain water crackers, the type served with cheese, store pretty well for a couple years in packages, not as long as pilot bread though. Also consider tortillas. Not long-term on their own, but you can get freeze-dried tortillas nowadays that will last many years. A bit niche, but they exist. A related item, matzos, unleavened bread used in Jewish tradition, last a long time if kept dry. They are basically large crackers too. We rotated some into our pantry after Passover sales. They're good with soup. In summary, whether you go old-school hardtack, modern pilot bread, or fancy survival crackers, Get some kind of long-lasting bread stuff into storage. It's cheap, and you'll be glad for that crunchy bit of sustenance. Dunk it, spread on it, or just gnaw it as is if you must. It's not exciting food, but it's steadfast, and that counts when you're in it for the long haul. 22. Oils and fats, cooking fuel for your body. Protein and carbs often steal the show, but let's not forget fats, your body's concentrated energy source and a necessity for absorbing certain vitamins. In a long-term grid-down or ration situation, getting enough fat can actually be a bigger challenge than getting carbs. That's why stocking cooking oils and fats is so important. They serve double duty, helping you cook, can't fry that squirrel without oil, and boosting your calorie intake. But here's the catch. Fats don't last forever. In fact, most oils have a shelf life and can go rancid, so you need a strategy. Vegetable oil, canola, olive oil, these are staples, and we do store them, but we rotate frequently. As a rule of thumb, unopened vegetable oils are best used within 1-2 years. They won't necessarily poison you after that, but they can develop off flavors or trans fats. We keep big jugs of soybean oil and replace them yearly for everyday use. For long-term, though, consider fats that are more stable. Coconut oil and ghee, clarified butter, stand out. Coconut oil is high in saturated fat, which ironically is why it keeps well less prone to oxidation. A sealed jar of coconut oil can last 5 years or more easily. I've had some last that long with no issue. It may solidify or liquefy depending on temp, but that's fine. Ghee, which is butter with the milk solids removed, pure butterfat, also has a long shelf life, up to 5+ years sealed, and it doesn't need refrigeration. I keep tins of ghee in our pantry as a butter substitute for cooking and spreading. Another classic, lard or shortening. Shelf-stable lard, the kind sold unrefrigerated, or Crisco shortening have preservatives that give them a long life. Unopened, they can last a couple years easily. Shortening has the added use in making emergency candles, by the way. A can of Crisco with a wick can burn as a candle for days. We include some bottled peanut oil as well for high-heat cooking and because it lasts decently. And I can't forget olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil is healthy and flavorful. It'll last around 2 years sealed, longer if kept cool and dark. We definitely stock olive oil, even if it goes a bit rancid after a couple years. Slightly old olive oil can still be used for soap making or biofuel if not for eating. Also, small tip, sesame oil, a little goes a long way for flavor, and those small bottles will keep a year or so. Nice to have for cooking variety. Diet considerations. If someone is on keto, fats become even more critical. They'll want extra of these stocked. If someone has issues with certain fats, like dairy allergy, so no GE, plan accordingly. Maybe use coconut oil, etc. Also, from a health perspective, you can't survive long on lean meat and veggies alone. You need fat for energy and to prevent rabbit starvation, protein poisoning. So a store of oils literally could save your life by providing needed calories when rice and flour only give so much. Now, one more use of fats, preservation. In old times, they'd seal cooked meat in fat, like confit or potting, to preserve it. You might find yourself doing that in a long-term grid down. For example, pour melted lard over cooked meat to keep air out and then keep it cool. Or making soap. If hygiene supplies run out, oils plus lye can make soap. Good reason to have some extra fats around. Storage of oils. Keep them in a cool, dark place. Light and heat make oils spoil faster. Smaller containers are better unless you're sure you'll use a giant jug quickly once opened. An opened bottle of oil will start to go rancid in months depending on conditions, so use it or transfer to smaller jars with minimal airspace. One item that often gets overlooked: mayonnaise. It's basically oil plus egg, and surprisingly, sealed jars of mayo can last a long time. The acidity preserves it. We don't stockpile a ton due to limited shelf space, and it needs cool storage once opened. But just saying, mayo is calorie-dense fat, something to keep in mind. And let's mention nuts again briefly. They are high in fats, but they also spoil for the same reason. The oils in them go rancid. Vacuum seal and freezing can extend nuts' life, but for room temp storage, maybe 1-2 years max for most nuts. So they're good, but not a multi-year solution unless you rotate. One more thing. Fish oil or omega-3 capsules. Not for food energy, but as a supplement. If your diet is low in fats or variety, having some fish oil pills can keep your omega-3 intake up. They also go rancid eventually, but usually have some preservative like vitamin E mixed in. In sum, don't neglect fats. True Prepper emphasizes oil and lard as the most calorie-dense foods you can store. It's true, a gallon of oil has like 30,000 plus calories. Without fat, your body will struggle in a long-term scenario. So stock up on a selection. A few big jugs of cooking oil, some canned butter or ghee, coconut oil, shortening, etc. Use them and rotate them, because unlike honey or salt, these won't last forever. But they're so crucial. And if nothing bad happens, you've just got a well-stocked kitchen for everyday frying and baking. Fry up those prepper pancakes with some stored oil and enjoy the good times, knowing you're set for the bad times too. 23. Coffee and tea, caffeinated morale and trade goods. Let's face it, morale is a huge part of survival. And for a lot of us, coffee is morale in a cup. That's why I consider coffee and tea as essential items in a prepper's pantry. Sure, they're not food per se, but they provide caffeine, comfort, and a sense of normalcy. Plus, they can be great for bartering. So unless you're someone who absolutely never touches stimulants, you'll want a good stash of these. Coffee. Ideally, store instant coffee for the longest shelf life. Sealed instant coffee packets or jars can last practically indefinitely. I've had some 10-year-old instant coffee and it was fine, maybe a little caking. Freeze-dried instant coffee is basically immortal if kept dry, and it's easy to prepare, just needs hot water. We keep big jars of Folgers instant for backup, even though we normally brew ground coffee daily. If you're a coffee connoisseur, also consider stocking vacuum-sealed whole beans. Whole roasted coffee beans can last a year or two sealed. After that, they slowly lose flavor, but are still usable. We rotate through our whole bean supply by drinking it. Even if the flavor degrades, slight staleness won't matter much in a pinch. You'll be happy to have real coffee. Pro tip: green coffee beans, unroasted, can be stored for 5+ years easily and then roasted as needed. This is a bit advanced, but I actually have 20 pounds of green coffee in Mylar with absorbers. I can roast them in a pan over a fire if needed, it's an art but doable, and grind for fresh coffee, even years down the road. Green beans are the way to go if you truly need long-term coffee and don't mind the extra work. But for most, instant or canned coffee is simpler. Also, tea. Dried tea leaves, whether in bags or loose, last a very long time too, years if kept sealed and dry. We store plenty of black tea bags, your basic Lipton or Tetley, and some green tea and herbals. Tea can provide not just caffeine, in the case of black-green, but also hydration and some nutrients if it's herbal, like vitamin C and rosehip tea, etc. Plus, it's comforting. A cup of chamomile can calm you down in stressful times. For variety, consider powdered drinks like electrolyte mixes, hot cocoa, which also has caffeine and needs only hot water with some milk powder, or powdered sports drinks, to cover vitamins and hydration. Those aren't substitutes for food, but they make drinking water more palatable and keep spirits up. In a collapse scenario, coffee will be worth its weight in gold for trading. I guarantee some folks will have overlooked it and will be desperate after a week without their fix. Same with black tea for those who prefer it. Small instant coffee packets or tea bags could be perfect barter items. They're lightweight, don't spoil, and people will want them. I even keep some cheap packs specifically for that purpose, while saving the good stuff for us. Another angle: caffeine isn't just a luxury, it can be functional. If you need to stay awake on watch or do a long night of work, caffeine can be a real aid. It also can suppress appetite a bit, which could help if you're on reduced rations, though hydration and not overdoing is key. And let's not discount the psychological edge. A morning routine of brewing coffee or tea can give a sense of structure to chaotic days. One challenge: if you lose power and fuel, how to heat water. So ensure you have off-grid ways to boil water: propane stove, wood fire, rocket stove, etc. Because coffee, tea generally need hot water to brew properly. Though you can cold brew coffee, it just takes time and option if fuel is tight. In terms of storage, keep coffee and tea in a cool, dry place like everything else. Moisture is the enemy. It can ruin both via mold. For ground coffee or beans, consider vacuum sealing them or storing in mylar with O2 absorbers to extend life. For tea bags, I often take them out of paper boxes and put into airtight tins or zipper bags with a desiccant packet. They last forever that way. Mylar pouch tea bags from the store are fine as is. A quick note: if you or someone in the family can't have caffeine, for health or whatever, you might still store some decaf or herbal tea so they have a warm beverage option too. In conclusion, while coffee and tea might not keep you alive like beans and rice will, they are indispensable for mental survival and comfort. As one prepper meme says, without coffee, the worst part of the apocalypse will be dealing with everyone's morning attitude. So spare yourself that drama and store ample amounts of your favorite Joe and Cuppa. When you're sitting by a campfire sipping a hot brew while the world's falling apart, you'll feel just a bit more civilized and hopeful. And that, my friends, is worth prepping for. 24. Spices and condiments. Flavor to fight food fatigue. If you've ever eaten bland food for days on end, you know how demoralizing it can get. That's why a truly prepared pantry isn't just about calories. It's about flavor. Enter spices and condiments, the unsung heroes that will turn your basic rice and beans into something you actually look forward to eating. In a survival situation, keeping morale up is half the battle, and good-tasting food goes a long way. So, let's talk about what flavorings to stock. Salt and pepper are givens. We covered salt as its own item. It's that important. Beyond those, garlic powder, onion powder, chili powder, Italian seasoning, cinnamon, and any herbs you enjoy. Oregano, basil, thyme, etc. These dry spices, if kept sealed, can last for years without significant loss of potency. Sure, they might fade a bit over time, but even older spices are better than none. We jar up or vacuum seal extra of all our commonly used spices. Also consider seasoning blends you love. Maybe it's Lawry's seasoned salt, Old Bay, curry powder, taco seasoning, or a Cajun Creole mix. Having those familiar flavors can transform your meals. As one prepper said online, find a spice mix you like, because plain beans taste a lot better with, say, some Cajun seasoning and garlic. Sugar and honey sweeteners are also condiments, and we've covered them. But a bit of sugar or honey as a topping, oatmeal with honey, for example, can drastically improve palatability. Don't forget hot sauce. If you're a hot sauce person, you probably can't live without it. The good news, many hot sauces, like Tabasco, Cholula, Frank's, last practically forever unopened. Vinegar-based sauces age like wine. They might darken or get more intense, but not spoil. We store several bottles because it makes bland food exciting, and it's loaded with salt, too, for electrolytes. Also soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce, vinegar and bouillon cubes or broth base. These are critical. Bouillon, beef, chicken, vegetable, is like instant flavor for soups and rice. It's salty, savory, and lasts years dry or in jar paste form. We have big jars of Knorr chicken bouillon. Even if you just have rice and water, adding a spoon of that makes a decent soup. Vinegar, white, apple cider, etc., is multi-use. Flavor, pickling, cleaning. It basically doesn't spoil either. Soy sauce can give that umami kick to rice or stir-fries, and it lasts a long time due to high salt, though eventually can mold once opened, but unopened years. Ketchup, mustard, mayo, the trio of American condiments. They don't have the multi-decade shelf life, but they last a good while sealed, 1-2 years easily. We keep extra of each. Ketchup and mustard especially are high in acid or salt, so they're pretty durable. There's something to be said for handing a kid a familiar ketchup packet to dip their canned meat in. Instantly, the weird canned meat becomes more palatable. Pro tip: snag extra condiment packets, ketchup, mustard, soy, hot sauce, from takeout. They're great for both portion control and barter. Small comfort items like that could trade well. Dry sauce mixes, gravy mix, pasta sauce mix, taco seasoning packets. We stock those too. They take up little space and can transform a dish. A packet of taco seasoning plus canned beef plus rice =sign makeshift Spanish rice that's way more exciting than plain. Baking spices like vanilla extract, cocoa powder, etc., can allow you to make treats if you have basic ingredients. We store cocoa powder, indefinite shelf if kept dry, so we can make chocolatey things or hot cocoa. Vanilla lasts basically forever. It's alcohol-based. Yeast, baking soda, baking powder, more functional than flavor, but if you have flour, you'll want these to actually bake bread or biscuits with leavening. Baking soda and powder last a long time. Soda indefinitely, powder a couple years. Yeast is shorter, 1-2 years active dry yeast if stored cool, but you can extend yeast by keeping it in the freezer or learning to propagate sourdough. Stock what you use. If you love Asian cuisine, have stir-fry sauces, sesame oil, and ginger. If you love Italian, store extra oregano, basil, Parmesan cheese. Grated Parm in the green can lasts a long time unrefrigerated. For BBQ lovers, have some shelf-stable BBQ sauce or dry rub. These comfort flavors will mean the world to you when eating survival rations, and they can cover up off-tastes of older food or gamey meat. Seasonings also help mask any staleness in long-stored foods. Plain rice and beans gets old fast, but rice and beans with chili powder, cumin, garlic, and a dash of hot sauce becomes chili, and that's a meal you can eat for weeks. Lastly, consider salt for preserving. You have that. Smoking woods or liquid smoke, not essential, but if you like smoky flavor or plan to. Smoke meats, have what you need. And maybe a fruit vinegar or hot sauce for vitamin C if no fresh produce. In short, spice up your stockpile. Food fatigue is real, and it can lead to people not eating enough or getting depressed. A variety of flavors keeps morale high and bellies full. Plus, spices and sauces are generally cheap now and last ages. It's been said, store what you eat, and I'll add, store what makes what you eat tasty. In an emergency, a little shake of seasoning can make the difference between choking down calories and actually enjoying a meal, and that morale boost can keep you going when things get tough. 25. Special diet and other essentials. Prepping for individual needs. Last but absolutely not least, let's address those special circumstances and dietary needs that generic lists often overlook. Every family has unique considerations, and part of being truly prepared is covering your specific bases. This means thinking about gluten-free foods, diabetic-friendly options, baby formula, pet food, and any allergies or medical diets in your household. It's great to have 500 pounds of wheat stored, unless someone has celiac disease. In that case, you better have rice, quinoa, or corn as substitutes. So, let's break down a few. Gluten-free or celiac. If you or someone can't have gluten, make sure to stock alternatives to the wheat, pasta, and flour I've listed. Good options. Rice, already on the list. Cornmeal, quinoa, buckwheat, certified GF oats, almond or coconut flour for baking. Note these have shorter shelf life due to fats, maybe 1-2 years, so rotate or freeze them. Also consider GF pasta, made from rice or corn. It doesn't store quite as long as regular pasta, but it's good for a couple years. Tapioca starch and potato flakes can help with baking or thickening in GF cooking. And check labels on things like bouillon or spices for hidden gluten. Some cheap ones have wheat as filler. In our storage, we keep extra rice flour and corn grits because we have a family member mildly sensitive to too much wheat. Diabetic. Low sugar. If someone is diabetic, you'll want to focus on low glycemic foods. Beans are good, high fiber, whole grains rather than refined, so maybe more brown rice or quinoa. Though brown rice doesn't store as long, you could opt for parboiled rice, which has a lower GI and stores nearly as long as white. Stock sugar-free sweeteners like stevia or erythritol so they can still have some sweet taste without the glucose spike. Also ensure you have any necessary medications stocked, insulin, though that's tricky due to refrigeration or other meds. If insulin-dependent, have a plan, fridge on backup power or stockpile of stable meds. But in terms of food, lots of proteins, canned meats, nuts, and lower-carb veg, canned greens, will be key. Keto. Similar to diabetic but by choice, high-fat, moderate protein, low-carb. If you plan to try to maintain ketosis in a crisis, not sure I would, since carbs are cheap fuel and stress needs cortisol control, but hey, then you want to stock extra fats, coconut oil, ghee, etc., as we discussed, and meats. You'd skip most grains and sugars, so load up on canned meat, fish, spam, oils, nuts, frozen ideally, and maybe protein powders to supplement. And electrolytes, since keto people need extra sodium, potassium. Keep that in mind. Salt is already covered. Consider salt substitutes or light salt for potassium, and maybe no salt or Powerade Zero packs. Nut allergies. If someone has a peanut or tree nut allergy, you might have to avoid peanut butter, number 12 on our list, and certain bars or trail mixes. Instead, look at alternatives: sunflower seed butter, soy butter, or just rely on canned meats and beans for protein. Also, check that any freeze-dried meals or MREs don't contain peanuts if trading or sharing. We keep a jar of sunflower seed butter as an alternative, since we have a friend who's allergic to nuts who might end up with us in a crisis. Lactose intolerant. Maybe not life-threatening, but discomfort you don't need. For those folks, store lactose-free milk, Parmalat type, or plant-based milk powders, soy milk powder, coconut milk powder. And focus on hard cheeses or ghee, which have less lactose. Also, perhaps lactase pills to take with dairy if needed. Infants. If you have a baby or might have one soon, infant formula is critical to store. The supply chain for formula can be shaky. We saw that in recent years. So have several months' worth of formula. Powdered is fine. Just keep it cool and dry. Rotate it since it has an expiration date. Even if the mother is breastfeeding, have formula as backup in case mom's nutrition suffers or she's not available. Also, consider baby food or plan to puree your own from preps. Canned veggies, fruits can be mashed up. But formula is top priority for babies under 1. Toddlers, kids. Kids can be picky and also have specific needs. Think about stocking some comfort foods for them. Maybe boxes of mac and cheese. The pasta will last, the cheese powder a couple years, hot cocoa mix, instant oatmeal with flavors, etc. Also vitamins. Important for kids and adults if diet is limited, but with kids especially to ensure proper growth. We have chewable multivitamins stored for the whole family to use if fresh food variety goes down. Pets. Your furry friends need preps too. Dry pet food, kibble, has a decent shelf life unopened, often 1-2 years, but can go rancid eventually. It contains fats. Canned pet food lasts longer, like human canned meat, a few years or more. We store extra bags of dog food and cycle through them. Also consider that if you run out of pet food, you'll need to share some of your food. Rice and some meat can feed a dog in a pinch. Not ideal long-term, but better than nothing. So store maybe a bit more rice meat for that possibility. And hey, if you have chickens or other animals, plan feed for them too if you intend to keep them alive for eggs/meat. Medical diets. If someone is on a specific diet for a medical condition, say low sodium for heart failure or low protein for kidney issues, you need to tailor accordingly. Have low sodium versions of canned goods and do more home canning, no salt if needed. Stock salt-free spices, etc. For kidney, maybe more pasta and less beans, etc. Know your household's needs and adjust. Medications and supplements. Not food, but since we're on special needs, ensure you have a good supply of any essential meds, insulin, blood pressure meds, etc. And consider supplements like vitamin D, C, a multivitamin, iodine tablets if nuclear concerns, etc. Comfort treats and mental health. Are there special foods that really cheer someone up? Maybe your kid loves M&Ms or you can't live without chocolate. Stored properly, some candies and chocolates can last a while. Dark chocolate a year or more, hard candy virtually forever. We have a stash of candy as a treat reserve. It might also be great for barter. And don't underestimate alcohol if you use it. A bottle of whiskey can be for both trade and the occasional stress relief or medicinal use. That's part of special considerations too, though not exactly a food. So, the key message for number 25. Know your crew and plan for their unique needs. Don't assume one size fits all when it comes to survival food. The best stockpile is one you can actually eat safely and enjoy. We've customized our stash to cover a little of everything above, because a crisis is no time to deal with an allergic reaction or a hangry toddler who won't eat lentils. Take some time to list out each family member, including pets, and note their dietary needs and preferences, then make sure your prep covers those. It might mean adding a few specialized items, but it's worth it. As the saying goes, the best diet in an emergency is the one that keeps you healthy. By preparing for special diets and needs, you ensure that everyone in your group can thrive, not just survive when the chips are down. You've now got a comprehensive rundown of the top 25 foods, and then some, that preppers are stockpiling in 2025. It's a mix that covers all the bases: long-lasting grains and proteins, vital fruits and veggies for nutrition, fats for energy, plus those comfort items that keep us human. Remember, it's not just about hoarding calories. It's about creating a balanced, usable food supply that you can rotate and enjoy over time. Store your food properly: cool, dry, dark places, airtight containers, oxygen absorbers where appropriate, and rotate. Use the FIFO, first in, first out method, so nothing goes to waste. Keep an eye on those expiration dates, but also know that many canned foods and dry goods stay good well past those dates if stored well. One more critical tip: water. I know our topic was foods, but I have to say it. Store plenty of water or have reliable filtration, because a lot of these foods, rice, beans, freeze-dried, hardtack, etc., require water to cook or rehydrate. Aim for at least 1-2 gallons per person per day for emergency water, and don't forget water for your pets and for cooking, cleaning. You can have all the food in the world, and it won't do you any good without water to cook and drink. Lastly, make sure you actually eat what you store, and store what you eat. Start integrating some of these items into your regular diet now, so your body and taste buds adjust. It's way better to find out now that you hate Spam or that your digestion isn't a fan of lentils rather than in an emergency. Adjust your plan accordingly. Maybe learn some new recipes to turn your stockpile ingredients into tasty meals. This will greatly improve your experience if SHTF. Prepping is about peace of mind. With these foods in your pantry, you can ride out anything from a brief power outage to a year-long disruption. You won't just have calories. You'll have the ability to make real, satisfying meals that keep you and your family healthy. Food is security, and you've taken a big step by understanding what to put on those shelves. Stay prepared, stay safe, and don't forget to rotate those stocks and check those cans. No bulging, rust, or dents. When in doubt, throw it out. Here's hoping you'll never need to rely on all of it, but if you do, you'll be darn grateful you planned ahead. So, what's your favorite prepper food? Is it trusty rice and beans, or something more adventurous like pemmican or canned octopus? Let me know. I'm always curious about what others are stashing. Until next time, keep on prepping and keep on living. You got this.